Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. It's the calm before the Breeders' Cup storm, but Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I are going to prep with analysis of 3 graded stakes races coast to coast. The Fayette Stakes at Keeneland, the Bold Ruler Stakes at Belmont, and the Autumn Miss Stakes at Santa Anita. 2 TimeformUS segments this week. Craig Milkowski is going to take a look at the pace projector and the pace scenario for the Fayette at Keeneland. Also, David Aragona is going to look at one of 3 stakes races at Belmont Park on Saturday, the Awad Stakes on turf for 2-year-olds. JK's Play of the Day, a Keeneland Daily Double, and Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on a couple of intriguing long shots to watch in next week's Breeders' Cup races. We also have best bets, horses to watch, and lots more, so let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, Naira analyst. Zenner has been very good to you financially in the past. I respect the loyalty. Give him a little press here on Out of the Gate.
Yes, Zenner maybe deserves a little press. We'll see what happens. Kieran McLaughlin's first job with this horse, now a 6-year-old. Keep him on the track. He's missed a year of racing between the Lure Stakes of 2017 and 2018. I actually feel like he came back and ran deceptively well off that year layoff at Saratoga this year. When you consider that he was wide off, the kind of soft turf off an injury you probably don't want to be really running over. He ran okay in that race. This is his second start of the year following that long layoff at Belmont last weekend. I just feel like this is a race he was probably best in. He didn't win, but I think he was best in here. You can see Joel Rosario saved a lot of ground with him. He just can't get him clear in the stretch. He has to wait for the eventual winner right in front of him, Profiteer, to clear. Then he gets to the outside. Zenner will make his run in here. He's just going to fall a little bit short in this race. This is a horse who's run now well twice off of a very long layoff after going 4 for 5 on turf last year, including the stakes win with a triple-digit buyer. We'll see what happens. I think going forward, he might have some stakes in his future if Kieran can keep him on the track.
Matt, your Horse Watch focuses on a very exciting 2-year-old. And no, he has not been pre-entered for the Breeders' Cup next week. How good is Maximus Mischief, based in Parks, of all places?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know, and I don't know what he's been beating, but boy, you can't argue with the figures at this point. This is a 2-year-old with Butch Reed. We're going to take a look at his most recent start. This isn't a non-winner's a 1, other than stretching out from 5.5 to 7 furlongs, and he just buries this field. And this is 2 consecutive starts where he's earned 90-plus buyers. In his career debut, he earned a 94, and in this effort right here, going 7/8 of a mile, he earned a 98, and he did it basically well within himself. The Dam is a sibling to Secret Compass, who was a Grade 1 winner. She won the Chandelier, so there's a little bit of pedigree here. He's by Into Mischief. They paid $340,000 for him, so clearly they thought highly of him early on. To be honest, I don't know what the sort of sky is, the ceiling for this horse, but I mean, to be honest, he hasn't done anything wrong so far, and arguably he's the fastest 2-year-old in the country.
In this game, a lot of handicappers, horse players, and especially connections of horses forget that patience is a virtue. Not so with my Horse Watch, Mesotherm, who sold for $400,000 as a yearling. That was way back when. Mesotherm didn't make his career debut until earlier this year. As a 5-year-old, he is now 4 for 6, has never been off the board, and has won his last 3 races with buyer speed figures of 87, 90, and 96. Let's go to the 96 effort, his most recent start at Laurel for trainer Lacey Gaudette, and he went right to the front in this race, took over on the turn, and is just going to keep on keeping on, winning by 6 lengths. He's gone through his conditions now, and you have to think with these kind of figures that a stakes race is on the horizon. Obviously, this horse has had his share of physical problems that delayed his debut until he was 5. But if the connections can keep him sound, their patience might be rewarded with a stakes opportunity over the winter in the near future. And down the road, there is a ton of turf on the bottom of this pedigree. Maybe he'd make a nice turf sprinter. Keep an eye out on Mesotherm, a 5-year-old with only 6 starts, but some big figures. Our Saturday DRF Bets race of the day is the Grade 2 Hagyard Fayette Stakes at Keeneland. It's coming up next. Saturday's DRF Bets race of the day is the Grade 2 Hagyard Fayette Stakes at Keeneland. Let's take a look at this field. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend, plus lots more, including Breeders' Cup Focus pre-entry previews, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We've got 7 entered in the Fayette, going a mile and an eighth for $200,000. And Matt, the number 5, Leo Frick, 5-2 on the morning line, did all the running in the Woodward and hung on very gamely in a race that went to closers.
Yeah, I thought he ran quite well that day, and I kind of feel like there's a scenario where if he runs that race again here on Saturday afternoon, he's got a big chance in this spot. We're going to go back and take a look at the stretch run of that Woodward, and you're going to see he's out there, and he was one of the horses out there kind of dictating the pace. And unfortunately for him, it wasn't an overly fast pace, but it was a contested one, and you had a couple of horses come from out of it that'll both be running in the Breeders' Cup Classic next week, in Yoshida and Gunnevera. I'm not 100% convinced that a mile and an eighth is really the trip for this horse, Leo Frick, but there's not a ton of speed in here. He has a little bit of versatility, whether he goes and takes the lead or he can sit just off of it. I think he's got a big chance in this spot.
We're expecting some wet weather in Kentucky on Saturday. That, coupled with the mile and an eighth distance, led to the 100 Beyer speed figure and very impressive win for Hofburg. What happened last time out in the Pennsylvania Derby, Mike Beer?
Yeah, well, I don't know what happened to him last time. I don't think he ran a particularly good race in the Pennsylvania Derby, although, you know, being last in that race early and then having to come very wide around the second turn probably didn't help his chances. I think more than that, though, you know, it was probably just the wrong race to really take him at a short price, considering it was plan B for him. He was supposed to run the Travers. I think he was going to be a hot horse in the Travers, and he had to miss that race when he came down with a fever. So I won't be too hard on him for the Pennsylvania Derby. Let's go back and look at his Curlin, though. This is a race that I think, you know, this is a race he was obviously supposed to win. He was a very short price in this race, but I think the fact that he won it the way he was supposed to win it is a good sign for this horse. He was supposed to beat this field easily. He did beat this field easily, and he did it in fast time with a 100 Beyer speed figure. He was obviously a pretty hot horse all through the spring in the 3-year-old classics. This was sort of his breakout performance. We'll see if he can do a little bit better here as he faces older horses on Saturday.
Of the top contenders in this race, you could argue that he's the one that benefits from the mile and an eighth distance the most. Last year, trainer Buff Bradley won the Fayette with the Player, and the pattern leading up to the Player's Fayette win was an optional claiming win at Ellis Park and then a runner-up effort in the Grade 3 ACAC Stakes. Buff Bradley's back this year with the number 2, Nice Not Nice. Let's watch the optional claiming win from Nice Not Nice at Ellis Park, 2 starts back with an 87 Beyer speed figure, where he's close to the pace in this sort of 1.5 turn mile configuration at Ellis Park, and then he's game in the lane to finish to win by a neck with an 87 Beyer. He then ran second, as the Player did in the Grade 3 ACAC, only against much better horses, finishing ahead of several Breeders' Cup bound horses like Awesome Slew and Warriors Club, while finishing second is Seeking the Soul, who's a Grade 1 winner at Churchill Downs. He improved his Beyer to a 96 in the ACAC Handicap. I think he's got some tactical speed. If you look at his lifetime past performances in Formulator, you see they are dotted with turf lines. I wonder if this horse has been a dirt horse all along. He's finally reaching his potential, and I think he can get a good trip tracking the pace. Best of all, he's going to be a big price. 10-1 on the morning line. I'll take a stab with the number 2, Nice Not Nice. Curious to see what TimeformUS's Craig Milkowski thinks of the pace situation of the Fayette. He's got that covered in his TimeformUS Pace Projector segment. Then Nicole Russo looks ahead to next week's Breeders' Cup with a couple of long shots that you need to know about.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski of TimeformUS, and this week I'm going to talk about the Fayette Stakes being run at Keeneland on Saturday. It's the 9th race being run at a mile and an eighth on the dirt. Almost threw me there. It used to be a mile and 3/16, I think. But in any case, the reason I picked this race is because the TimeformUS Pace Projector flags this race as likely to be favored favored by horses on or near the early lead. You can see that in the upper right corner of the preview page where we have the flag noted in blue. It says show details, and we'll see that a little more closely here in a second. The first thing I want to do, though, is look down this running style column, and you can see why this is flagged this way. We list all the running styles for each horse, and only one is even shown as so much as a tracker. That's number 2, Nice Not Nice. There's no horses listed as leader, none as speed. And why I found that interesting in this race is because a horse I think is going to take most of the money is Hofburg. He's the 6th horse trained by Bill Mott. He was a promising 3-year-old. He ran very well in the Kentucky Derby. He's had some issues as of late. He went in a very weak Curlin Stakes, which he won pretty easily. Was supposed to be a prep for the Travers, which he eventually missed due to a minor issue. He showed up at Parks for the Pennsylvania Derby, ran okay, not particularly well at a low price. And I think he's still going to take a lot of money here, just on name recognition alone as he steps up to face older. But he's a horse that likes to come from well off the pace, as well as a couple others in here, Hence, who you may remember from the Derby Trail last year, and also Rated R Superstar, who very rarely shows any speed at all. Also, we have Scuba in here. He's a horse who's had most of his success at much longer distances. He's run well in the marathon on Breeders' Cup weekend, won some other really long races, but not really what you'd consider a speed horse at this distance. So let's first look at the pace projector a little more in depth. And you can see it shows the 5 and the 1 horse up in front, close. The 5 is Leofric, the 1 Prime Attraction. And then a little bit further back is the 2, Nice Not Nice. These are the 3 horses that we're going to focus on in here. First, let's look at Leofric. He is an interesting horse to be shown up front. He hadn't shown a whole lot of speed throughout much of his career, but it seems lately he's kind of developed into it. Now, you notice that Mountaineer he won at even money, but he showed kind of a new dimension, going to the front, setting a slow pace. So it's a race you kind of might be a little skeptical of, as you know, he did get that blue fraction early. It wasn't a lot of competition that day, but he stepped up next time at Saratoga in the Grade 1 Woodward Stakes, and he was right up on the front battling through solid fractions, not particularly for Grade 1. They were in the 20s, which is, that's about average for Grade 1. So, he wasn't walking up. He was doing battling and horses. Eventually faded back to. So I do expect a good effort from him. The next one I want to look at is number 1 Prime Attraction. He's shipping in from California, probably trying to get away from Accelerate. You can see in his last 4 dirt races, he's faced him every time without much success, which pretty much goes for everybody this year. He's only lost a race all year at Oaklawn. He's won all of the big California races. So Prime Attraction definitely taking a big step down in class here in this group. He should show some speed. It looks like maybe they changed tactics up a little bit last time when he was much further off a fast pace. Could just be they were tired of fighting with Accelerate early, or, being right there with him and getting out kicked late. Didn't exactly work out, but I think he's one that, he's going to be right up close to the front, especially given his inside draw. I am a little skeptical of that last race, and he is a 2-to-1 morning line favorite. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think he'll go off the favorite. I think it'll be Hofberg. But he's still going to take some money for sure. And of the 3 we're going to talk about as being near the lead, he's the one I like the least. Which brings us to number 2, Nice Not Nice. He's trained by Buff Bradley, and he's a horse that has a lot of things I like to look for. He's been improving as of late. He ran on turf a lot earlier in his career. Not really sure why, because I think he prefers dirt. His speed figures tend to point in that direction. He's won more on dirt than he's won on turf and less opportunities. And I like his pattern as a 4-year-old. He came off turf. He ran pretty good. He won an allowance race at sort of 1-turn mile at Ellis Park. Then he stepped up to the Grade 3 ACAC at Churchill in the 1-turn mile, and he ran really well, beating just 1.25 lengths by Seeking the Soul with a nice 1:19 speed figure. So I think he's going to be right there. I think these 3 horses we've talked about here, Prime Attraction, Leofric, and Nice Not Nice, definitely have a pace edge on the field. They shouldn't be going too fast up front. They should have plenty left for the lane. And of the 3, Nice Not Nice is 10-to-1 on the morning line, and I think he offers the most value. So I'm going to play him to win. I'll do a couple exacta key boxes with the others, Prime Attraction the 1 and Leofric the 5. And that'll be my wagers on Saturday. Good luck to everybody. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you from Kentucky for Out of the Gate. We've got one more weekend to go, but I'm going to use this week's segment to begin looking ahead to the Breeders' Cup, as we've got so much to unpack there. And I'm going to focus in on one specific stallion, and perhaps you can apply some notes on him to your handicapping of this weekend and in other future events. Violence was a Grade 1 winning juvenile during his own racing career and was among the leading freshman sires last year. Perhaps having an even better season with his current 2-year-old, has 7 individual pre-entries for Breeders' Cup Friday, when all 5 2-year-old stakes on the program will be contested. And the handicapping takeaway that I want you to take from this segment is that Violence is a stallion where you can have a lot of confidence in his versatility, going short, going long, running on turf, running on dirt. Violence is a son of Medaglia d'Oro, a dirt runner by prominent turf sire El Prado. That resulted in a lot of versatility in his offspring, as you could see perfectly at last year's Breeders' Cup. Medaglia d'Oro, the sire of Breeders' Cup winners Talismanic, who took the turf at 1.5 miles on the lawn, and Bar of Gold, who won the filly and mare sprint on the dirt. Now, Violence has inherited this versatility with his progeny. He'll take a star turn in the inaugural juvenile turf sprint, where his runners are expected to include Win and You're In prep winner Strike Silver, who you took a look at there, and It's Gonna Hurt. But he's also represented in the pre-entries by the likes of Dueling, a maiden winner 1 mile on the main track and a hopeful for the juvenile, and Vibrance, also a maiden winner at 1 mile on dirt, and second to the Chandelier to juvenile filly's favorite Bellafina. So maybe keep that in mind for your handicapping notes. This type of horse, by a versatile sire, is the type you can really get a price on if you watch out for them trying something new when they're finding their niche as young horses. We'll have wall-to-wall handicapping and coverage for the Breeders' Cup next week on DRF TV. So stay tuned for more analysis and pedigree handicapping like this throughout the lead-up to the championship weekend.
DRF Sports Forum Digital Edition, your ultimate weekly betting guide. Published by Daily Racing Form, DRF Sports Forum delivers all of the analysis and insight you need for every NFL game and more than 40 college football matchups. Beat the spread with powerful trends and sharp angles. Tap into best bets, expert picks, parlay winners, and more. All for just $4.99 per issue. Get this week's edition free. Visit drf.com/sportsforum. Enter code DRFSports.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, TimeformUS pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the feature race at Belmont Park on Saturday. It's the Grade 3 Bold Ruler Handicap. We're going 7 furlongs. $200,000 is the purse. A field of 6 is expected. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded races this weekend, including lots more covering the Breeders' Cup, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Before we get to the morning line favorite, the number 4 Cold Front Matt, I want to talk about the second choice on David Aragona's morning line. That's the number 1 No Dozing, who returned off a long layoff early this year as a new gelding, immediately popped a gigantic buyer speed figure, might have run against a bias 2 starts back, and last time out I thought he was primed and ready for the Kelso and he just didn't fire. What happened that day?
Yeah, well, unfortunately for me, that was what led me to get off him here in this spot, because I agree with you. There was really no excuse. We're going to take a look at the Kelso, and you got to keep a few things in mind when you take a look at this. The pace, according to TimeformUS, the early fractions were slow, color-coded blue. So in theory, this horse is working out a beautiful trip, and I recognize that pattern recognition is a talented horse. But this horse, No Dozing, just didn't do any running at the end of the race. And also, when you factor in the way that the track may have been playing that day at Belmont, I didn't think there was any excuse for him to run as poorly as he did. And it was bad enough where I can't pick him in this race.
Mike, one of the major storylines in this race is the return to the races off a 399-day layoff for Cold Front. Last seen winning the Gallant Bob Stakes basically on 3 legs for Todd Pletcher.
Yeah, I think he came out of that race with an injury, and we haven't seen him in over a year since then. I was personally, I don't know about you, I was surprised to see him in the entries for the Bold Ruler. Although it's hard to argue with this spot for him, assuming all is well with Cold Front. That remains to be seen if he's still the same horse he was as a 3-year-old when he went 4 for 5 and won 2 graded stakes races. We'll see what happens. Let's look at his Gallant Bob, though. This is the last time we saw this horse. Last September at Parks, he got to the lead in this race, and he just would not let these horses into the race in the stretch. This was a nice performance for him, a 107 Beyer speed figure, suggesting that he was going to be tough going forward, but we didn't get to see him again after that. I'm not going to go on and on about this horse, guys. He's going to be a short price in here, and I think there are a lot of reasons to be skeptical of what you're going to get from him. What he has going for him is he's faster than these horses if he can still run. There is not a lot of other pace in this race, and it feels like he can make the lead in here if he can still run at all. And Pletcher is just out of this world with horses off of long layoffs like this.
Another major storyline in this race, Matt, turf to dirt for Delta Prince. And we all know Delta Prince's pedigree, being a half to the quality dirt mare Royal Delta. This horse has made most of his hay on turf. Historically, Jimmy Jerkins has done well going turf to dirt. What do you think of him, not only on dirt, but at this distance?
To be honest, it was just more of a default picking here because I didn't want Cold Front at the price that he was likely to be, and No Dozing I thought was just so bad in that race. And the Kelso most recently, at least Delta Prince, I still think maybe there's a chance where he ends up being a solid horse. He's done some good things in the past. We're not going to look at any of his most recent races. We're going to go back to his second lifetime start on dirt, and that's going way back to the end of 2016 at Aqueduct. We can take a look at that right now. Look, you're not supposed to draw any conclusions from this effort. He's tried the dirt twice. He didn't run poorly in either one of them. He ran second and third, one on a wet track, one on a fast main track. He's done some good things on the turf. He was beaten by a neck 2 starts back in the 4-star day of a grade 1. The blinkers go on here for this race. I don't know what to make of him, to be honest with you, at 7/8 of a mile. I think he's probably better going slightly longer. But at the same time, if you're not sold on Cold Front, or you just think that he's probably going to be an underlay, you're not sold on No Dozing or Petrov or anyone else, I'll take a shot here with Delta Prince, thinking that he's a talented horse.
I concur with Mike on multiple fronts. I think that Cold Front is the most likely winner in this race, and I wouldn't be lining up to bet him at a very short price. This is a key race for Cold Front because I think the main goal down the road is the Cigar Mile, and I think Todd wants to get a good tight race into him, knowing there's going to be stronger competition in the Cigar. He was very good as a 3-year-old. I think he's got a pace advantage in this race. He might just be better than these horses, but at a short price, you might want to have caution. He is the most likely winner, in my opinion, though. That's Cold Front. We'll move from east to west, from dirt to turf. The Autumn Miss is the feature race at Santa Anita. Here's the field for Saturday's feature race at Santa Anita, the Grade 3 Autumn Miss Stakes for 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile on the turf for $100,000. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend, Breeders' Cup pre-entry analysis, and lots more, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Big, bulky field, Mike Beer, your morning line favorite, Twinette. Listen, she's got credentials to be sure, but she's coming off a layoff and a bad race.
Yeah, the last race for her was back in July in the Belmont Oaks, the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks. That's 1.25 miles, though. It just felt like she was one of the horses in there who just didn't really get to 1.25 miles. I think that was the case with several of those 3-year-old fillies in there. Prior to that, she really had run really well in all 3 of her turf starts. So I feel like that's the kind of race the Belmont Oaks you don't want to be too hard on her for. We'll see what we get off the layoff. Let's go back and look at her allowance win at Keeneland. This is her 2nd career turf start. She got a perfect trip in this race. She sat right in behind the pace the entire way, and you can see her clear at the top of the stretch. She'll drive down, Cool Beans on the lead. A really nice performance. She would exit this race to go into the Grade 3 Edgewood at Churchill and beat a really good horse that day in Rushing Fall. Now, she did it with an absolute perfect trip into a fast pace, but she still beat a really good horse. No problem with her as the favorite here. I do think she's the horse to beat.
I think she's probably the horse to beat based on what she's done thus far in her career. I am concerned about this layoff, however. Supposedly she suffered a minor injury in that last race, the Belmont Oaks, a race that's been very, very live, to be sure. She's talented. Matt, your top selection in this race, though, is just ultra consistent no matter the distance and has the tactical speed to get a great trip.
Yeah, whatever you throw at Ms. Bad Behavior, she just kind of takes it in stride. Doesn't matter the distance, doesn't matter the company that she's keeping. 1.125 miles, 6.5, doesn't matter. I will say I think this mile trip is actually what she wants all along. We're going to go back to her most recent start in the Unzip Me. This was going down the hill on September the 29th. Keep in mind the beginning of this Santa Anita meeting, speed held up. Speed did very, very well going down the hill. So perhaps she was a little bit up against it on the outside there, and she's not going to quite get there. She'll run second by 1.25 lengths. Like I said, though, I feel feel like this mile trip, this is actually what she wants. And you brought up that versatility, Dan. She can go to the lead. She can sit just off. In a race like this, it's a big, bulky field. Probably going to have some company up front, but she should work out a good trip. I'm a little bit concerned. If any of these other girls take a big step forward, I'm not sure that Ms. Bad Behavior has a big forward move in her. Through 11 lifetime starts, she kind of lives in that high 80 range. If high 80 is good enough to win, I think she's right there. If it's going to take a low to mid 90, I'm a little bit unsure about her.
My Catholic boys trainer, Jonathan Thomas, ships Tesoro west. Tesoro has been campaigning in sprint races recently, but she is proven at a mile. She's got a lot of upside. She really kicked home last time out. Was that a product of the pace, or is this just an improving 3-year-old filly looking to feast on the West Coast turf horses?
I think it might be the latter. I think she really took a step forward last time. I will say that her two starts back at Saratoga, where maybe she was a little disappointing finishing fourth that day. That was a race that was run at a very slow pace, and she was badly compromised by dynamics that day. Let's look at her Christie Cat last time, though. She's off the pace again. They're sprinting in this race. You can see her back off the pace, and Javier Castellano moves her to the outside right now. I like the way she finishes in this race, though. She's going to run down this entire field at the end. We'll see what happens as they stretch her back out in distance. I think she's going to be fine with it, Dan. If you go back to her second career start out at Del Mar last November, that's a race that you really want to watch if you're concerned about her going a mile, because she ran that field over in hand the entire way. I think that gives you a lot of confidence that when she stretches back out.
And that was stretching out 3 furlongs in only start number 2. I'm not concerned about the stretch out. I'm just hoping for a fair pace with Tesoro, because it does look like she has a powerful kick, and it's quite possible we haven't seen her best. I agree with Mike. I'm going with Tesoro. I believe she's 6-1 on the morning line, and I think she's fared around 9-2 or 5-1. JK's play of the day is a late double at Keeneland, and then we've got David Aragona from TimeformUS spotlighting the Awad Stakes for 2-year-olds on the turf at Belmont on Saturday. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's play of the day. 1 week away from the wonderful Breeders' Cup at Churchill Downs. Sunday, Churchill Downs opening day, all 2-year-old races, a lot of fun. We're going to finish off strong in Kentucky at Keeneland. I like a double late in the card on Saturday, starting in race 8, an allowance race. I'm going to use the 4-horse and the 4-horse alone, Silver Dust. Blinkers off, ran a huge race at Saratoga, an allowance race. Wrong part of the track, ran really big that day, comes back first off of a break. It was a little bit wide that day. Blinkers off here. I think the horse is really going to improve. Should be a good price as at 4-1 on the morning line. And I'm going to start off this double with a 4-1 in there. Going on to the next race, the Fayette Stakes for 3-year-olds and upwards. I'm going to use 2 horses in here. Leofric for Brad Cox has been running some big figures, training well to all accounts. Should run better in this spot. Didn't get there last time in the Woodward against Yoshida, but ran well enough that day. And so I think Leofric is one that could be a little bit sneaky. And then Hofberg coming back into form, gets Jose Ortiz, Bill Mott. Can get one readied off of a little bit of a break. Not a huge break, but a little bit of a break. I think Hofberg will run better. These are the only 2 I'm going to use. I think the value is going to come from the front end of the double using Silver Dust, who's listed at 4-1 on the morning line. Good luck. Save some money for next week. Take care.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona for this week's TimeformUS Spotlight. We're going to take a look at the 4th race at Belmont on Saturday. It's the Awad Stakes, going a mile on the Widener turf course at Belmont for 2-year-olds. It'll be interesting to see how this race plays out in terms of the weather, because one caveat to my handicapping for this race is we are expecting some rain Friday night into Saturday, and we've gotten a ton of rain in the area over recent weeks. The turf has finally gotten firm at Belmont, but you do want to take notice just in case it gets wet, or if they even take this race off the turf. There's some interesting MTOs in this race, which we won't get to. Let's take a look at the entire field. There are 2 horses that you'll see at the bottom are cross-entered in Breeders' Cup races, but it looks like neither of those horses are going to get in because they're so far down the also eligible list. So I would assume they're going to run here. The likely favorite's going to be the number 6 horse Empire of War, coming off a maiden win, but all these horses are coming out of different races, different directions, so it's a pretty competitive field. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you see the TimeformUS pace projector, and that red bar indicates that this race is likely to feature a fast pace if it stays on turf. The number 2 horse, Ole Mole, is the one that's likely to be setting the pace. He's shown speed in his recent turf starts. He won wire-to-wire fashion at Delaware, and he set the pace in the Pilgrim last time out when that race kind of fell apart. The horses that are likely to be chasing him are some horses stretching out in distance. The number 4 horse, Absolved, who came out of a sprint race in the Laurel Futurity last time, and Empire of War, the number 6, who set the pace when he broke his maiden last time out. And let's take a look at that favorite, the number 6 horse, Empire of War. He earned a 101 TimeformUS speed figure for that maiden win last time, which is respectable. You see those red color-coded pace figures indicating that he set a fast pace to do it. But one thing that you do want to note is that October 6th was one of many days towards the middle of this meet where the rails were set at 0 feet. And when those rails came down, that the ground right now down near the hedge was really firm. It was where you wanted to be. And Empire of War was down that inside path for his entire trip. So is the runner-up, Malfail, who finished 6 lengths clear of the rest of the field. So those two were really benefiting from the trips they got in those races. So I think you can slightly downgrade Empire of War's performance. But he did break from post 11, cross over to clear the field through fast fractions. So give him some credit for that, but do take notice of the circumstances. He's got some talent. I think he's the horse to beat, but at a short price, I want to look elsewhere. Another horse that might take some play in this race is the number 9, Order of Law. If you watch that Laurel Futurity, he was very visually impressive in winning. He was absolutely nowhere at the top of the stretch, came closing down the center of the racetrack. He was probably closer to the outside rail than the inside rail by the time they hit the wire, and he just got up to win by a nose. But you do notice those red color-coded TimeformUS pace figures. The pace of that Laurel Futurity was very fast. The pace totally fell apart, and it was really dominated by horses making outside moves, and Order and Law was one of those. I'm not sure that effort is quite as good as it seems, and the 88 TimeformUS speed figure, it really gives him no credit because he was benefiting from that fast pace. So it's a little bit lower than some of his main rivals in this race. He's got to stretch out in distance. I think there are some obstacles for this horse, and I'm a little bit against him in this spot. I'm actually interested in another horse coming out of a maiden win, and he actually did so on the dirt. That's the number 5, A Thread of Blue. Now, he did lose his only turf start, but I thought he actually ran very well in that September 8th race because he was rating off a pace that pretty much held together. The winner, Current, came back and won a stakes at Keeneland in very impressive fashion next time out. And A Thread of Blue, he really finished up that race well after kind of having to alter course at the top of the stretch. He had to come around a tiring horse, and he had to kind of regain his momentum once he got back into the clear. And I thought he finished up pretty well to chase Current to the wire and put some distance between himself and the rest of the field. He finished well ahead of 4th place finisher Malfail, who's the horse that actually was right with Empire of War when he broke his maiden next time out. So I feel like that 96 TimeformUS speed figure that A Thread of Blue ran to that could be a little bit higher. He showed speed next time out when he broke his maiden, showing some versatility. And I just feel like this horse still has some upside for Kieran McLaughlin. And if this race is run on the turf, he's the one that I want to bet. I made him 5-2 on the morning line. I think that's a fair price for him. I'd take him anywhere between 2-1 and 3-1 in this race. But it's A Thread of Blue for me in the Awad Stakes. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. We're rolling 3 5s for everybody. All of our best bets are the number 5 in their respective races. Mike Beer, Naira Analyst, Belmont Race 6. Talk about Bratata.
Yeah, my number 5 in race 6 at Belmont. It's a turf sprint on the inner, so we'll see what happens with the weather. Hopefully it stays on. If it does, this just looks like the right spot for Bratata. I know that she's burned a little money in the past, but not without some excuses, that's for sure. Let's go back and look at her only win so far. 9 career starts, only 1 win. This is it at Gulfstream Park early this year. She just dusts this field from off the pace. Following this effort, I thought this was a really good effort. It's 3 stakes races on the grass. She finished 3rd in 2 of them and ran really well 2 starts back in the Wild Applause, a race that had no pace. We haven't seen her since Saratoga. She was in the Coronation Cup that we referenced earlier, talking about Tesora. They just walked on the lead in there. She was last, had no chance. I actually think she's okay sprinting, so I don't have any problem with Chad sprinting her again in this race. This is just the kind of race where she's supposed to win.
Matt, you're number 5 on the West Coast at the Great Race Place Santa Anita. Race number 8, you like Impression?
Yeah, Impression. This is a non-winners of 3 lifetime. Most recently, Impression broke through the non-winners of 2 lifetime level. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, we'll find out. It was on a different surface. This race on Saturday is going to be on the turf. We're going to look at his most recent start. This was on the dirt at Los Alamitos, and you've got one way to go. You got Martin Pedroza up. They go right to the front for Billy Morey, and they don't look back. Wins by 3.5 lengths. The reason I think that this may actually play over to the turf, there is no speed in this race whatsoever. And again, you have Pedroza, I think, again, one way to go. You break, you try to just send this horse. Maybe you try to get a couple of mediocre fractions, and then you go on with it. 0 for 8 lifetime on the turf, but 7 times second or third. Even if this one's not good enough to win, perhaps you want to be using underneath at a decent price.
I'll head on over to Laurel for my number 5. It's in race number 9. That's Cocktail Waitress, who's been kind of a money burner throughout her career, but I think she's actually in sneaky better form than it looks. 2 starts back, she ran over the bull ring at Timonium. She caught an intensely speed-favoring track, got wired by a sharp horse, a horse that came back to win with a 71 buyer in her subsequent race. And then her most recent start at Laurel. We're going to take a look at it. It's an off-the-turf 5.5 furlong race. She showed her usual good speed from the start. She's going to take a good bump from this gray horse right there that knocks her off stride. And while she is no match for the winner, another sharp horse, a horse that came back to win with a 59 buyer speed figure, she is pretty game in holding on for second, denying that gray horse the runner-up spot. Perhaps the best news for Cocktail Waitress fans is that she was claimed out of this race by trainer Claudio Gonzalez, who's winning at a 41% rate at Laurel. Over the past 30 days is 20 for 55, 36%, and is just a wizard off the claim. 7 furlongs might be a little bit of an issue for Cocktail Waitress, but I do not believe she is the need-the-lead type, and I am hoping that Victor Carrasco can have her just off the pace, ready to strike when they turn into the stretch. 7-2 on the morning line for my number 5 in race number 9 at Laurel. That's Cocktail Waitress. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate this week, and we urge you to stay tuned for Breeders' Cup Week on DRF TV. Not only will there be 2 Out of the Gate races talking about the Friday and Saturday Breeders' Cup cards, you'll have Clocker reports from DRF's Mike Welsh, you'll have the commingled DRF Players podcast and the Matt Bernier Show, all the expanded stakes previews, pedigree analysis from Nicole Russo, and lots more. Follow us on social media at DRF Video and come back to video.drf.com each and every day on Breeders' Cup Week. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.